Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call the meeting to order. If I could, before we get started, if I could ask you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Good morning and happy holidays, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a auxiliary location in the auditorium, and I would like to just check with I have had Scott Garant sworn in as an assistant moderator. He will be running the auxiliary location in the auditorium, and there are two tellers with him that will be responsibility for recording the votes and bringing those to the town clerk. I just want to check with him and make sure I've got them and that they can hear us down there. Okay, they can hear us, they can see us, we're ready to go. So to the folks in the auxiliary location first, if obviously you are an active participant in town meeting and if you would like to speak on an article, please let the tellers know and the tellers will escort you to the gymnasium. All the speakers will be here in the gymnasium as we don't have microphones there and the ability to hear them in this room. So they will be escorted here and will be able to speak. A few announcements and comments before we get started. I'd ask that you either turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate and all other electronic equipment as well. All non-voters should be seated in the section over on this side, the two rows on this side. Non-voters have white stickers. Voters have pink stickers and yellow stickers. There is no reason why you got a yellow or a pink sticker. That's how we bought them. So there's no reason why you have one or the other. In accordance with Section 10C of the Inhabitant Bylaws of the Town of Wilmington, all articles will be drawn via random selection process. I have all the articles in the bowl here. We'll pick them one at a time. Articles 3 and 4, I have determined are dependent upon each other and will be taken up together. So I will draw one ticket that has 3 and 4 on it. We will vote Article 3 and 4 simultaneously. All motions, amendments to Articles 1, 2, and 4 must be in writing as they pertain to the expenditure of funds or bylaw changes. And the tellers can, happy to take a seat up back until we call for a vote. And thank you. If you wish to speak, I'd ask that you please go to the microphones. There are 6 of them located in the front of the auditorium, 3 here and 3 in the middle. If you have a question or need an explanation on something, please ask. There are a lot of people here, and that is great. I don't have the official count, but this has to be a Town of Wilmington record town meeting. Congratulations. And if it looks like I'm sweating, I am. I've been asked a number of questions prior to this meeting. I will explain the procedures and do everything I can to make sure everyone is clear on what the process is. If you have a question, please ask. I am here to help. I'd like to thank in advance the tellers. This is going to be an interesting day for our tellers. This is probably the biggest vote we'll ever record at town meeting, and I want to thank them in advance. This is not an easy process, and I thank them for their hard work. Thank you. And thank you, WCTV, once again for covering the town meeting. It's nice that they're all volunteers. Thank you for being here. And to George Hooper and the Public Buildings Department, what a great job they did getting this set up. We almost got everybody in. And to all the town departments for making this. Democracy sometimes has a little pain involved in it, and I apologize for the wait this morning, but this is the most democratic process in the world, and thank you for participating in it. Most importantly, I have always stated that we will deal with each other respectfully. I want to make this perfectly clear. Discussions will be specific to the article before us. There will be no personal or character attacks or disrespectful commentary. Violation of this will result in action up to and including immediate removal from the meeting. These are my rules of civility, and I will strictly enforce them today. We have 6 articles on the warrant. Article 5 will be passed over as it has been declared not surplus by the town manager, just to give you a heads up. So that will leave 5 articles that we will actually vote on. I encourage all of you, there are only 5 articles. I encourage you, all of you, to stay for the entire meeting and make this as least disruptive a process as possible. A quick announcement. The Pup Warner A-Team cheerleaders yesterday won the national championship. So they know all about Wilmington, Massachusetts down in Disney World too. And those people in the bleachers, I know that at some point during the meeting you're going to get an urge to probably start the wave or something. I'd like to ask you to keep that under control if you could. Ready to roll? Okay. I thought you were. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in the manner prescribed in the bylaws of said town, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town qualified to vote in town affairs, to meet and assemble at the Lawrence H. Cushing Gymnasium, Wilmington High School, Church Street, in said town of Wilmington on Saturday, the 10th day of December, 2011 at 10:30 a.m., then and there to act on the following articles. Mr. Samaglia.
I move that the moderator dispense with further reading of the warrant and take up and make reference to each article by number.
Is there a second? Motion's made and second. Discussion. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Voted. Scott, can you hear me? Scott, can you hear me? The auditorium also has approved the motion. We're on article number 1. For any questioning. To see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds an amount of money to be expended under the direction of the town manager and high school building committee for the purpose of paying the costs of designing, permitting, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new high school, including the payment of costs for any necessary site improvements. Said high school to be located at 159 Church Street, Wilmington, which school facility shall have an anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children for at least 50 years, and for which the town may be eligible for a school construction grant from the Massachusetts School Building Assistance Building Authority. The town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need, as determined by the MSBA, and any project cost the town incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. Any grant that the town may receive from the MSBA for the project shall not exceed the lesser of 1, 52 47/100% of eligible approved project costs as determined by the MSBA, or 2, the total maximum grant amount determined by the MSBA, or take any other action related thereto. Is there a motion? Mr. Newhouse.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town appropriate the amount of $81,563,115 for the purpose of paying costs of designing, permitting, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new high school. including the payment for costs of any necessary site improvements, said high school to be located at 159 Church Street, Wilmington, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, which school facility shall have an anticipated useful life as an educational facility for the instruction of school children for at least 50 years, and for which the town may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Said amount to be expended under the direction of the town manager and the high school building committee. To meet this appropriation, the Board of Selectmen is authorized to borrow said amount under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The town acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need, as determined by the MSBA, and any project cost the town incurs in excess of any grant approved and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. Provided further that any grant that the town may receive from the MSBA for the project shall not exceed the lesser of 1, 55 and 1900% of eligible approved project costs as determined by the MSBA, or 2, the total maximum grant amount determined by the MSBA. Provided that any appropriation hereunder shall be subject to and contingent upon an affirmative vote of the town to exempt the amounts required for the payment of interest and principal on said borrowing from the limitations on taxes imposed by Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, also known as Proposition 2.5, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the project funding agreement that may be executed between the town and the MSBA.
Thank you. Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. Finance Committee recommendation is approval. Discussion, the motion, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much as in your booklet. The amount of $81,563,115 is the amount.
Mr. Moderator, I request that Don Walter, representing Dorr Whittier, the town's architects on this project, be allowed to address the body.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Newhouse. Mr. Moderator, members of the town meeting. I'm Don Walter, principal with Dorr Whittier Architects, and we've had the distinct pleasure to work with this community actually since 2007, starting with the feasibility study on all the schools. What came out of that study was a desire to study the needs of the high school further. And as you know, the MSBA has participated in that study that we've been working on over the past 9 months. What I'm going to do here today is just take you through the building that has been voted on and approved by the MSBA board, by the high school building committee, and by you folks last Tuesday at a ballot-wide vote. So with that, starting with the site, we have a 28-acre site, and on this site you can see the outline of the existing high school. Church Street, Adams Street, Wildwood up in the back. The existing stadium located here, baseball, and a new athletic field added up off of Wildwood Street. Getting a little closer, I want to give you a sense of how the new school will work on the existing site. We look at Church Street. Here's the existing Roman house, building located here from front to back. A bus loop and drop-off will come off of Church Street across the front of the building and out the north side of the site. Parent drop-off will occur off of Adams Street, looping around a parking lot located on site, dropping students off along a plaza at the south side of the building. We also have new tennis courts and a basketball court developed, which are currently located on the north side of the site, down to the south side. Essentially the way and finally the circulation around the building for both service and emergency vehicles. So there's 360-degree access around the building. This is the main entrance, which you'll see off of Church Street. There's two entrances on the south side, and the left-hand side is what we call a student entrance for parent drop-off. We also have an events entrance or a public entrance for community activities. On the first floor, main entrance located off the bus loop with administration, guidance, and health immediately adjacent to it, as well as the library media center. you can see this whole first floor and the building, which is 3 stories tall in this location, is around an exterior courtyard, a courtyard that will be utilized by a number of classrooms. If you were to circulate around the north side of the building, you can see there is, pardon me. We have culinary and family consumer science and business on the north side. We have art on the south side. As I mentioned, media center on the west side and cafeteria on the east side. All of these spaces have access into a courtyard to carry on activities. Along the south side, we have a media production room, which is a tiered lecture hall, which will allow for distance learning, for small performances, lectures, things of that nature. And on either side, we have graphics labs, some for art and technology, and some for computer-aided design. This is the community entrance, that events entrance that was mentioned, and that takes you up a wide corridor, which has a cafeteria on the left, which is open to create a lobby for community events outside of the auditorium and the gymnasium. The auditorium has a full fly-loft stage and music immediately behind, so you can service the auditorium for either music events or for plays. The gymnasium is accessed by this corridor and a stair, which will take you down to the locker rooms below, which I'll show you in a minute, or out back to the stadium. So this is the locker room area and weight room, which is actually located just down below the gymnasium. But what's important about this design, and it's hard to perceive when you look at the site, you think it's flat. Actually, from Church Street back to the stadium, the grade drops about 9 feet. So those locker rooms will be actually partially up above grade, almost like a split-level house. So natural light will be allowed to come into those spaces. So this is that stair that took you down to that location, and you see locker rooms and weight room all down below. When we go up to the second floor, and I'll take you through the second floor a little bit, just imagine the third floor, because they're essentially the same. This is a very efficient building, as well as it's very educationally motivated. What I mean by that is the goal of the district was to try and design something that focused on 21st century learning. And essentially what that means is a lot of collaborative learning, a lot of interdisciplinary learning between subject matter, and set up in such a way that students and teachers are working together in small groups. So the building is set up with the principle of 8 small learning communities. And each of those learning communities are classrooms, special needs rooms, and small group learning areas off of those classrooms, which you see in between the classrooms. We also have those learning communities serviced by teacher planning and special needs resource rooms. So what's important about that is that everything is integrated. And then at the west edge of the building, you can see 4 science labs. These science labs then integrate back with those learning communities. The reason they're located where they are is because there's an efficiency to having spaces like that that are technically motivated and have a lot of HVAC needs ganged up next to each other and on top of each other. And then on either end of the courtyard, we have a science lab and a fitness room. The fitness room is located there because in the gymnasium, which this is the upper level of the gymnasium, there's actually a walking track available. So what happens is your educational, physical education program is enhanced by a walking track above the floor below. It's also available for athletics before and after school and for the community. And it has a nice, easy location relationship to the fitness room. When you get to the third floor, essentially the same plan that we just looked at. The only thing that's different is that we have an additional science room located at one end of the courtyard and 2 more business labs at the other end. As you recall, there's a business lab downstairs related to the family and consumer science. We also want to get it up into the academic area of the building so there's more integration and interdisciplinary learning occurring between those subject matters. This is a 3D view of one of the learning communities, and you can see the 4 classrooms around a center core where students can actually be out into a space beyond the classroom in these nooks, and the small group learning rooms on either side, either for projects, AP courses, or special needs use. And you can see a lot of glass in between all of these spaces. It was really important for the district to make the classrooms as transparent as possible, so you can not only see what's going on between classrooms, but if you're walking by, you get a chance to understand what's happening too. And lastly, you can see every classroom's arranged differently. Flexibility is the key to all of this. So students and teachers can rearrange their rooms as necessary to teach their particular subject matter. And then finally, just want to take you through how we envision the building looking. This is going to be a masonry building, essentially a brick building. It's a 3-story building of a scale that's going to fit in the neighborhood. We understand, this is an historic district. The Roman house is going to remain, which is right here. This view was taken from Church Street looking over the existing tennis courts. So you can see a strong masonry base, the center entrance, and then brick walls above. So we think it's complementary to the existing district. As you move down Church Street, here's the Roman house again. You're across from the new basketball and tennis courts where the existing high school is located. You get a nice view here of the student entrance and the bus loop that comes in and goes around behind Roman house, and the parent drop-off, which occurs beyond. And then lastly, a view looking from where the baseball field is currently located. And while we think the building is classically designed, we want to express what's happening inside the building a little bit also. So what you're seeing here are the learning communities stacked up on top of each other, projecting themselves forward. And you see the media production area here, CAD lab, and the graphics lab on either side. So the student entrance is down to the left here, and your public events entrance is located here to the right. So just want to thank you for the opportunity to present the project and let you know that either myself or John Richardson are here to answer any questions you may have later. Thank you.
Further discussion, Mrs. Kane.
Good morning. I'm Peggy Kane, chairperson of the school committee. We would like to let you know that as a school committee, we are 100% in favor of this warrant article. And I'd like to request, Mr. Moderator, that we have Mrs. Joanne Benton, Superintendent of Schools, speak for us now.
Of course, Mrs. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town meeting members, I come before you today to ask for your support of Article 1. Wilmington has long been a community that values education, and Wilmington High School has been one of your greatest community assets. While our schools have consistently been able to provide for our students, the high school facility is beginning to compromise the quality of education being delivered. There are 3 primary reasons why this facility is challenging to meet the needs of the Wilmington students: age and condition, lack of space for a 21st century teaching program, and change in the educational program. The same building which served 1,500 Wilmington High School students in 1970 is running out of space for 960 students today. The tremendous number of changes in the educational program over the past half a century since Wilmington High School was built is driving the need for a very different looking high school. For example, 72% of students take 4 years of mathematics, up from 15% in 1965. 79% of students take 2 or more years of foreign language versus 10% 40 years ago. In addition, the number of sports teams have more than doubled, and the number of students in our orchestra has tripled since the 1960s. The bottom line is that it takes more classrooms and more athletic space to serve the same number of students than a few decades ago. In the spring of 2010, Wilmington High School had a 10-year accreditation review. The review concluded, quote, "Wilmington High School's facility has been compromised by decades of usage. The accreditation visit was concurrent with an extended sustained period of rain that resulted in showing the team many of the structural problems of an old building. Leaks from a compromised roof were commonplace. The structure of the building and its limitations necessitate creative storage. Technology improvements and upgrades become problematic because of the age of the building. Faculty and staff members are making every effort to provide education to all students, but they are impacted negatively by the dated facility, which inhibits the ability for the staff to teach and the students to learn, unquote. A key goal of a new high school is to meet the need of today's educational program and to provide flexibility and functionality for changes in enrollment, the use of technology, teacher collaboration, curriculum and scheduling, which are all integral parts of a 21st century education. This project is significant to each and every resident of the town of Wilmington. This project is more than a school building. It's the development of a major long-term town asset. The decision that you make today will affect young people's lives for generations to come. After all, you, the residents of Wilmington, will be making an investment in our students' future. I ask you for your support today of Article 1. Thank you very much.
Further discussion, Mr. Kyra.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to briefly bring folks through the cost and financing plan, and that is what is up on the board right now. So these are the estimated total project costs as well as the impact on the residential taxpayer. The figure that Mr. Newhouse mentioned in his motion is that top line, $81,563,115. That is what we believe the entire cost of the project from this point forward will be. That excludes what you have already voted for, which you did 2 years ago when you allowed us to get to this point through the feasibility study and schematic design process. That amount of money, which was not borrowed, which we paid for within our operating budget, as you recall, was the $1,125,000. Of that amount, 55.19% will be, when it is all said and done, reimbursed to the town in the amount of $620,888. So the town's share of that initial portion was $504,000. The next line below the $81,563,000 is the estimated local share from this point, and that is the amount of money that we will borrow. All right, we will borrow $44,190,758. By your overwhelming vote on Tuesday, you enabled us to exceed the levy limit to enable us to tax beyond the restrictions imposed by Proposition 2.5 through the debt exclusion. In total, we will be getting from the MSBA nearly $38 million, $37,993,245 to be exact, which is the number that we expect to receive based upon their initial MSBA share of $620 and the remaining balance. Now, you've heard the number 55.19% in relationship to the reimbursement. The effective reimbursement from the MSBA is 46%. The reimbursement for eligible cost is 55.19%, and that's why we're not receiving more than half of the money, because certain costs are not eligible for reimbursement. Now, I think what you probably are most interested in is what the impact is going to be on the taxpayer. We make our best estimate with regard to coming up with this figure. Our financial advisors, the town accountant, and others, along with myself, work towards an acceptable formula to determine what we believe the impact will be attributed to the construction of the new high school. What we believe that impact to be for the average taxpayer over the period of the life of the borrowing, which is 25 years, we believe that will be $164 a year. Now, that means that in the beginning of the borrowing, The number will be higher. It will be, as I've said before, $230 or so, and by the end of the payment period, it'll be down to about $100. But when you average it out over the 25-year period for the average property taxpayer, we estimate that it will cost $164 a year. Now, when you look at that and you break that down, that means a monthly average of $13.68 or a weekly average of $3.15, probably less than the cost of a cup of coffee at Starbucks, maybe a little more at Dunkin' Donuts. The other thing that folks might be interested in is, what if I don't have the average property? And we probably can't find an average property. It's just a mathematical exercise. If your property is valued at $300,000, for example, then your average over the 25 years, instead of $164, would be about $137 or $138. If it's $400,000, then it would go to $183. And so the dollar split would be $265, $315, or $353, regular large or extra large, is the way I would look at it in that particular case. So that's what we're looking at in terms of funding. There's no denying that we are in a difficult economic situation for many people. And I don't doubt that the additional taxes will be a burden on some. But in my judgment, and I think in your judgment, it's a burden well worth assuming for the children of this community. I think that the town of Wilmington has prepared itself financially. We are a AA+ community, which for a town like Wilmington is probably as high as we're ever going to get because of our demographics. I can tell you it's the single highest bond rating that the town of Wilmington has ever had. We have sufficient operational reserves, far more than what is even recommended by bond rating agencies, just for this very reason. So we will be able to appropriately meet all of our obligations going forward. So certainly I'd be happy to answer any questions as this meeting progresses. But at this point, that is about as basic as I can give as to the financing and the projected cost for the project. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Josephine King. I live at 230 Burlington Avenue in Wilmington, and I've been a resident for 11 and a half years. I do not object to the high school and the need for it. I do object to the footprint. If the architect would answer to one question, and then also I would ask that the town move the footprint for the main building for the high school and the impervious surface or the driveway, whatever behind it, back away from the wetland by 100 feet, which means you'd lose 100 feet of your grounds out in front of it, your pretty grass and the trees and stuff. But by doing so, you preserve the integrity of the wetland and you do not contribute to more contamination. The way that the wetland is designed by Creator to work is that it can only handle just so much contamination, and this comes from streets and exhaust fumes that get on the surfaces, and when it rains, it washes that into the lowest part of the ground, which is the wetland. And the only people that's going to be most majorly affected by this vote and approving and building it is not the majority of the taxpayers, but the people on the other side of the wetland, because they're the ones who are going to be dealing with more water in their yards, more flooding in their basements. If they haven't had a problem yet, they will be by the time the system is up and running. And by then, it'll be too late to move anything. I'd like to ask the architect on the drawing where he shows of the same thing that I have, where I have colored it to show the green here, this is the wetland itself, and the blue is the 100-foot buffer zone that by state and federal law cannot be allowed to have buildings and impervious surfaces, things that don't absorb the water. the federal law and the state law both allows for you to work there, which means you can go in and cut the grass, pull the weeds, trim off any broken limbs or anything like that. But it does not give you the right. There's no place in there that says you can go in and build a building within that 100-foot zone. You can't build a building within the 25 feet that the town has for the last several years approved of. You can only maintain it. And by putting this footprint into that area, who you're going to impact are the people that are behind it. It's not the majority, but they're still taxpayers, and they're still homeowners, and they're still residents of the town of Wilmington. But I'd like to ask him the question.
And I understood your point. Is the question, does the design comply with wetlands protection? I'm not sure what the question is.
I'd like to ask the architect, when he showed this picture up there on the thing, he didn't even mention the yellow line that he had around it. He didn't mention, he didn't have any of the, didn't even comment about the yellow line. His drawing actually shows it in yellow for the surrounding for the wetland, and then it shows the buffer zone, and the lines on the drawing that was posted on the internet and what he put up here shows that it goes within the boundary. So how can he be in compliance with state and federal law?
Mr. Walter, I guess I'd ask, is the design in compliance with wetland protection rules and regulations?
Sure, be happy to answer that. We are in compliance with federal, state, and local wetlands bylaws. We are allowed to construct and create impervious surface within the buffer. That's actually what triggers review with the local conservation, which we will go through. So we are in compliance. And the other very important point is that while we are creating impervious surfaces in different locations on the site, we are required to maintain all the stormwater runoff within the site and not go beyond what's currently occurring there. So we are in full compliance, yes.
Thank you. Ma'am?
So are there going to then be boundaries between the impervious surfaces and the wetland behind it? Because within the state law too, and town bylaws for wetland is not compliant with state.
Mr. Walter? Is there a buffer between the impervious zone and the wetlands? Was that the question, ma'am?
Yes, yes, there will be.
It doesn't show up on any of your drawings. I just want people to, this is my only objection. I don't object to the high school at all. I just think you need to move it back 100 feet, and that way we don't contaminate any more of our water and have to buy more from other towns. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Further discussion? Yes, sir.
My name is Jim LeMay. I live at 25 Shady Lane Drive. I've lived in Wilmington since 1998, I believe. I just wanted to take a look at real estate taxes because I know this is a sensitive issue with the cost of the high school going forward. So I went back to 2005, and then I looked at 2011 in terms of the published real estate taxes for the average single-family home on the Massachusetts Department of Revenue website under Division of Local Services, the Municipal Data Bank under the Local Aid section. I took a look at the towns for the average single-family real estate tax bill for 2011, the last year posted. Of the 338 towns that reported information, Wilmington ranked 135. That's top third. If you look at the towns around us, the towns with the higher single-family real estate tax burden, not unexpectedly, are Andover, Bedford, North Reading, North Andover, Reading, Stoneham, Wakefield, Burlington, and Billerica. Wilmington was then ranked, and then 2% higher than Tewksbury, which was $80 lower. The other towns that were ranked lower, or that are somewhere nearby us geographically, were Medford, Haverhill, and Woburn. Realistically speaking, and it was basically the same ranking order for 2005 and 2011. So I think, comparatively speaking, Wilmington is a good value from a real estate tax standpoint. The towns nearby us are either more expensive or don't have the same Route 93 commuter rail access that Wilmington does. And I would also like to add that Wilmington does not add on a lot of extra fees that a lot of the other towns do to supplement the real estate tax bills. And I know some people are saying this is all well and good, but it was just in the paper that the real estate tax bills are going to go up. And with this proposal, they would go up additionally. I think it's naive to think that other towns' real estate taxes aren't going up, and other towns' fees aren't going up as well. I don't think that's a deciding factor in my vote. In conclusion, I guess I would say I'm in favor of this new high school. It's never easy to fund a capital project, whether it's for your town or whether it's for your house. But at some point, you need to make the decision that you need to invest a significant amount of dollars for the long term so that you don't keep spending good money after bad, like repairing an old car. Eventually, at some point, you need to buy a new used car or a new car. To all the people who that would offer a different plan, I respectfully would argue that this plan has been approved by the building committee. It's earmarked for funding. There's no guarantee that your plan would be approved and earmarked. I would say vote yes and take the money on the table. Go for the bird in hand and don't fall for the two in the bush. Thank you.
Further discussion, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart, before I comment, just a point of order, and could you correct me if I'm wrong? People are allowed to speak twice and for 5 minutes each, is that correct?
People are allowed to speak twice, but no one is allowed to speak a second time until everyone has been given the opportunity to speak once.
Okay. Thank you. With regard to this project, first of all, a lot of people think our country is a democracy. Our country is actually a republic. We did pledge allegiance to a flag that represents a nation with liberty and justice for all. And I want you to keep that in mind because I'm going to get back to that. But first, I have some comments for our architect. If you'd be kind enough to pull up on your screen the film that shows the locker rooms, weight rooms, and that sort of thing.
Mr. McDonald, what are you looking for? I'm not sure.
I would like our architect, if you would be kind enough, to put up on the screen the picture that depicts the weight room and locker rooms, please.
Do we have the picture, Mr. Walter?
He showed it earlier. Okay. Mr. Walter, you stated that the topography of the land drops down from Church Street to the football field 9 feet. At a previous meeting, you stated that these rooms right here would be 6 foot below grade. If you project from Church Street over to the Swain school site, it probably rises up about 5 feet. As some of you are aware of, the Swain school basement was getting water in their basement, which is about 5 feet below grade. When you do the calculations, 9 feet below Church Street plus another 6 feet would make this 15 feet. And I'm concerned that these rooms right here would be underwater. As you are aware of, we have wetlands around this area. In addition to that, the lady that spoke earlier on the wetlands, okay, I just want to add something to what she said that I am aware of. Where our softball field exists, land that was thought to be an easement is not an easement. It was taken, it was actually filled in. There was wetlands and a vernal pool filled in to create a way around the softball field. I believe it was done illegally. Now, it's done, but I believe I've been hearing some people that are going to make an issue out of that. In addition to that, if you would bring up on your screen your courtyard. Could you show the courtyard, please? That inner
Thank you, Mr. Walter.
Thank you. That inner courtyard, okay, The only way to get snow out of there is either with a crane and a crew, or taking the snow out through that doorway, down that hallway, and since the land drops down 9 feet, down a set of stairs, and then finding a way to get rid of it. Why is that important? Because those rooms that are below grade, okay, have an issue with getting flooded. Okay, this is labor intensive. This is adding costs onto that. If you would bring up your classrooms showing the glass between the classrooms, please.
Mr. Walter?
Now, my personal opinion is that the glass between the classrooms are going to be a major distraction to the students. In addition to that, it's going to be labor intense to not only keep them clean with labor, but also the materials to keep them clean. Now, why am I telling you these things? It's fact. It's fact. I happen to have been to a lot of meetings. I happen to do a lot of research. You may have been one of the persons that have gotten flyers from me, okay? I happen to believe, and it was confirmed by the architect at a meeting when I asked, is this building a structurally sound building? And he said yes. It is my feeling, okay, after looking at other developers, such as Cummings Property, who buys old buildings and redevelops them, does not knock them down.
15 seconds.
Okay? We can turn our building into something that generates revenue, okay, produces $1.2 million a year, and what we should be doing is buying the farm when the economy gets better, then deciding to build a school. If we buy the farm, we could have our own arena that would generate income.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Time's up. Mr. Bolero?
I just look around. There's a lot of people here. Mr. Moderator, thank you very much. I was hoping you could enlighten us a little bit on how we're going to accommodate construction year students and how we're going to accommodate, or what kind of disruption there would be for perhaps Church Street, closure of streets, detours of traffic, and what year is it expected that the building would be occupied?
Mr. Kyra?
Yes, the building is expected to be occupied in 2014. We hope to have that the academic year of August of 2014 as the start date for the building. The staging area, which I think is pertinent to your question, will be on that Wildwood site, and there will be work done prior to the actual construction on Church Street in terms of bringing the sewer line down. Other than that, we will also be taking down, as folks know, this gymnasium where we are right now. So that'll be the only piece that will come down. Otherwise, the schools will not be disrupted. Mrs. Benton and her staff have put together a plan to ensure that there is minimal disruption. Now, clearly, when you're at a construction site, there is going to be noise, there's going to be activity going on. Nobody is denying that. But the beauty of this project is that we're not having to bring in any trailers, any secondary classroom areas. We're not cutting into any of the academic core areas at all. Physically, the only portion of the building that will be affected will be the portion of the building that you are sitting in right now.
Further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Joanne Chukas. I live at 7 Cedar Street. I've been in Wilmington for 55 years. This is the first largest town meeting I've ever seen. I'm proud of you. I really am. I have never voted against a school. However, at this time, I think we have to look at the issues involved. The economy, number one. We all have friends and neighbors who have lost their jobs. Some of them are losing their homes. A high-tech high school is a great idea, but that's what it is, a great idea. The figure of your tax rate is a bottom line. That's not exactly what it's going to be until all the figures are in. By the time they start building, the increase in cost, the increase in wages, your tax rate could go up more than what it is. That is not a fixed figure. You could probably see a much higher increase in your taxes. Some towns have almost doubled their taxes in order to put a new high school on. A building does not educate our children. Quality teachers educate our children. And as long as we give them quality teachers, your children will not suffer. My children, grandchildren, have gone through the school system, and they're all doing quite well in this building. Tell the children, sorry, your dad is out of work, but we'll build you a new high school. And please remember, when the vote is taken, whether you win or lose, please do not leave. Because before the end of the meeting, someone can get up and say, I make a motion to reconsider the vote on whichever article, and it can be revoted. And if you have left, your vote is gone.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Daniel Veerman, 131 Middlesex Avenue. Unless anyone else wants to speak, I want to move the question.
Mr. Foskett. It's my responsibility to make sure that we hear some debate on both sides of the issue. We've heard 3 speakers in favor and 2 against. I'm going to allow your motion. So the motion is to move the previous question, which, ladies and gentlemen, is to end debate and allow the maker of the motion to speak for up to 10 minutes if they should so choose. So that's what we're voting on. So I'd ask, I'm going to try this as a voice vote, and I need to get in touch with the auxiliary location. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, we're going to try a voice vote, ladies and gentlemen, to move the question. So what we're voting on is to end debate. For those people in the auxiliary room, they can see me and hear me. We'll try a voice vote. If you're in favor of ending debate and giving the maker of the motion, which was Mr. Newhouse, up to 10 minutes to address the body, then you should vote yes. If you want to continue debate, you should vote no. Everybody clear on what we're voting on? Anybody not clear on what we're voting on? Can you hear me now? Okay, we're ready for the vote. All those in favor of moving the previous question signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. It is clearly voted here. 1 second. The motion passes. Mr. Newhouse. Mr. McDonough, for what purpose do you rise?
To bring it up for reconsideration?
We have any... You want to reconsider the vote to move the question? Is that what you're reconsidering?
Yes. If I make that motion, I can speak if I'm the maker of the motion?
No, you could not speak because moving the question is not debatable. Would you like to withdraw your motion now that you can't speak?
Yes.
I figured so. Mr. Newhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I know that I'm afforded the opportunity to speak for 10 minutes. I'll try and be brief. First of all, very important to thank, I know that the moderator had already thanked the individuals who had made this day possible in terms of the logistics. I look forward to the day we have a new high school where the auditorium is better equipped to accommodate this kind of crowd. Most importantly, I want to extend a thank you to anyone who took the time to go to the ballot box to vote this past Tuesday, whether you voted yes or no. It's very important that people get out and participate in the process, and I couldn't be more pleased and proud of the town and the result that we saw on Tuesday. Thank you very much. Also like to thank the folks here today who took the time to be here. I know family time is incredibly valuable. There's plenty of things that everybody could be doing, but I don't think there's anything that's much more important. There's not too many things that are more important than being here today. So thank you to each and every one of you who's participating today. I had promised to be brief, and I'll keep my promise, but I think I'm remiss if I don't at least say this. In terms of a vote on this matter, I believe it's unequivocally in the town's best interest to vote yes. The need is obvious. We've spent time in the last year and a half trying to demonstrate that need. When this building was constructed, the rotary telephone was state-of-the-art technology. Right now is the right time. We've heard mention of the town's bond rating AA+, an anticipated interest rate of 3.2%, competitive bidding environments in public projects. Clearly, not only is the town ready for this, it is the right time in terms of the economy. Probably most importantly, as your presence here today demonstrates, the biggest reason why this is the right time is because the town of Wilmington always has and always will take pride in maintaining and enhancing the quality of education for Wilmington students. It was true in 1950, it was true in 1975 and 2000, and it's true again today. Thank you again.
Okay, we're ready for the vote. Tellers, take your places. We had one speaker from the auditorium coming. Mr. McDonald, are you still here? Okay, just want to make sure that you are somewhere to be voted. I just want to make sure we had everybody accounted for. Thank you. Okay. So this process is going to take a couple minutes, ladies and gentlemen, and I ask for your patience ahead of time. I'm going to ask for those that are in the affirmative that are voting in favor of this article to stand. And you probably go, well, not yet. Well, I'm just telling you the process. And you're going to be standing for a little bit, okay? So I ask your patience. Please don't sit down until I tell you to, okay? I ask for your patience on that. And then, once that is done, the tellers will take the vote sheets up, give them to the town clerk. The town clerk will start tabulating. The tellers will go back. I'll ask that those are against the motion to please rise. We'll count those votes. At the same time, I have to wait for the folks from the auditorium to bring their yes votes here. Let them get back to the auditorium before we take the no vote. This may take a couple of minutes. Please, you've been very patient today, and I know you will with this as well. So we ready to go? Okay, those in favor of Article 1 as presented signify by rising at your place. Count 'em. Please remain standing. Well done. They're still counting. Doing great. Please remain standing. They're still counting. They're still counting. I abstain. I only vote to make or break a tie. I am Switzerland. I think everybody knows how I stand on the issue. Okay. Do you have all the color sheets? Okay, please remain standing. One, two, three, four. They're still counting up the back here. Auditorium. Let's see. Lorraine? Thank you. Hang in there, folks, just another minute. Patty? Patty, do I have yours, both of your sides? Okay. Check Nancy, Bob's done. Okay, good. And Lorraine's. You get all the sheets? You have the 2 auditorium sheets, right? Okay, we got them all, right? Okay, yes, oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. You may be seated. I'll give the tellers that are counting the auditorium a couple minutes to get back there, wait for the signal, and then we'll ask those opposed to stand, okay? And just a reminder, we do have 5 additional articles after this one, so please, love to have you all stay and enjoy the entire day of warrant articles. So, which hopefully isn't an entire day if I was misleading you there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the tellers are back in the auditorium. All those opposed to Article Number 1 as presented signify by rising at your place. Mr. Bodnar, please. Please remain standing. Tellers are good. We got everybody? Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. McDonough, for what purpose do you rise?
I I have something to say after you just tell the vote.
Mr. McDonald, there is no warrant article before us. There's nothing to speak on.
I'm just, point of order.
What's your point of order?
Just letting you know after you give the vote, I would like to comment.
You don't get that opportunity, Mr. McDonald. Just waiting for the tellers from the auditorium, ladies and gentlemen. A couple more minutes. And here they come. How about a nice hand for Mrs. Crosman and Mrs. Searforce for walking all that way? Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, the vote is as follows. 1,426 in the affirmative, 31 in the negative. Thank you, folks. Once again, may I remind you that we have a number of articles before us this now afternoon, and encourage all of you to stay. So, Mr. McDonald, do you have a point of order? Or?
I'd like to bring it up for reconsideration.
There's a motion to reconsider Article number 1. Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this motion is in order, and what you will be voting on is to reconsider Article number 1. We will allow discussion on the reconsideration, which can go into the main motion, and then we will vote to reconsider. Okay, I'll go through the process when we get to the vote, but in effect, if you want to keep the vote that you just took, you would vote no on the reconsideration, and then this article could never come up again today. If you voted yes, if you wanted to reconsider the article and bring it back up for a revote, you would vote yes. Okay? So this does allow a discussion into the main motion. So, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I happen to be the guy that was going down to the site every day when they were test drilling, and I'm the guy who actually recovered the oil. And I'd like to request, I put a request into the police department yesterday for the officers that are in charge of custody of evidence to actually bring that evidence to the meeting today. Chief Pagonis. Is Chief Pagonis here? Chief Pagonis, do you have...
Excuse me, Mr. McDonald, you can direct your questions and your comments through me. This isn't your meeting, okay? This is my meeting. Excuse me, it's your meeting.
Thank you for getting that straight, Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stewart, could you request the police chief to bring that evidence down that I requested yesterday?
Chief Pagonis, would you like to address the matter?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, town meeting. Mr. McDonald came in about 10:30 yesterday morning, made multiple requests. The police department is obviously busy with other matters and will attend to those in due time. He has 10 days for his public information request, and we'll consider the other ones.
Mr. Mr. McDonald, let me make perfectly clear and caution you. The debate on this issue goes into a funding issue and a funding issue only. That is all Article 1 refers to, and that is all debate will go into. Are we clear?
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. I was very well aware of that, which is why I brought that up, because this is what my concern is. Everybody would love something new. New car, new boat. Some people would like a new wife. We happen to be getting a new school, okay? You want a new school? That's fine. I want everybody to be prepared for something. You will build a new school. You will pay $83 million plus any cost overruns. Then you will knock down a building. Then you will hit a massive oil spill, about 70,000 gallons. So if today you think your taxes are going up $183 or $164 or $264, plus the other $100 that we were told that it was going to be going up on. Okay? So be prepared to pay that, folks. Be prepared for a disaster. In addition to that, you should ask yourself one question. We have the middle school paid for. We have the public safety building paid for. If we have that debt paid for, why are our taxes going up? In addition to that, I have documentation, tax bills that show there are people with large lots with betterments that are paying far less than people with even vacant lots. There is a major problem with the assessing in this town.
Mr. McDonald, the assessment of the town has nothing to do with the high school. Thank you. Further discussion on this? Thank you. Mr. Newhouse.
Mr. Moderator, I find it ironic that the biggest single recognizable voice in opposition to this project in the last 6 months voted for it on the main motion. And there's a reason for it, folks, and this is very important. The reason is so that that gentleman could have standing to vote to reconsider. It's a parliamentary maneuver. And here's where it puts us, unfortunately. Under the town bylaws, we can only reconsider the vote that we took once. So in fact, if this body votes no to this reconsideration, which I fully expect it will do, Article 1 is off the table for the rest of the day, which leaves, unfortunately, leaves the petitioner of another article, which could potentially undermine what you just started on Article 1 with a simple majority vote. So this is a parliamentary ploy in the hopes that this room will empty and to try and undo what we just did by over 90-something%. I urge people to vote no on this reconsideration. I appreciate the time that people are spending, but I beg of you, please stay, if at all possible, to finish what we started. Thank you.
Further discussion, we're ready for the vote. You get one shot, Mr. McDonald. We're ready for the vote. If you are in favor of reconsidering Article 1, so if you want to take up Article 1 and re-vote it, you should vote yes. If you want to not take up Article 1 and have Article 1 not be allowed to come up again today, you should vote no. Everybody clear on what we're voting on? Okay, let me just check with our other location. And normally, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, I would ask the individual who made the motion how they voted. I had seen that Mr. McDonald had voted in favor of the article, and hence Mr. Newhouse's comments. Okay, we'll try this with the voice vote, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody clear on what we're voting on? Okay, good. All those in favor of reconsidering Article number 1 signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. No! I think I got it. Motion fails. We're on Article number 6. If I could have order, please, ladies and gentlemen. Article 6, to see whether the town will vote to preserve Wilmington High School and prevent it from being demolished or take any other action related thereto. Mr. McDonald.
Hello. I move that the town take action to preserve Wilmington High School and prevent it from being demolished.
Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. Finance Committee recommendation is disapproval. Discussion. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, thank you.
I also caution you, discussion on this article goes into the preservation of Wilmington High School and the prevention of the demolition only, into no other articles.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I stated earlier that our building is a structural sound building that was confirmed by the architect. Question is, do you knock down a structurally sound building that could generate $1.2 million into our treasury? The other issue is here, if you're not aware of it, Wilmington High School is acting as a buffer and as a dam to keep the water that's coming from off the hill by the senior center, going underground by the Swain School site, from getting into the oil. Are you prepared?
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, if we could have order, please. The gentleman has a petition before us. You will have an opportunity to speak or vote after he's done. Thank you.
By the way, there were over 100 people that did sign the article, the petition, so I want to give them thanks too. The question you need to ask yourself is, are you prepared to knock down a building and then have water causing oil to become soluble, getting into our wetlands, which are tributaries to waterways, to drinking supplies? Now, I stated earlier that our country is a republic. There are times when democracy fails. There are times when the mob rules, when people don't carefully consider the consequences. When you try to come up with a solution for a new school, but you create many, many other problems, all right, that is when a democracy fails. This school, okay, has functioned for many years. I went to school here and it educated 1,200 students. Since that time, we've had additions put on, additional classrooms, new gym, new CAF, new library, new roofs, new windows, new security system, a lot of money put into it. Now, there are other places to build a school. What do you do when your new school is designed for 960 students when this school held 1,200? See, people are saying, oh, the enrollment is going down. But folks, we have people going to private schools that may come back here and go to your new school. We have senior citizens that have 3- and 4-bedroom homes. They don't sell it to other senior citizens. They sell it to people with kids. We have some massive, large lots in town, such as the Sharapa Farm. There was a proposal to put, I think it was 750 units up there. What happens when you build your new school for 960 students and a mega development goes in there, then all of a sudden you find that your new school is inadequately sized.
Mr. McDonald, we're on preserving Wilmington High School. We're not on the construction. We already voted on the construction of a new high school.
Yeah.
So your discussion needs to be around preserving this school. That's all this article refers to.
Folks, I figured out that if we actually did something with this school, it could generate revenue for us, okay? It really doesn't make sense to knock something down that could generate $1.2 million to our town, okay? A couple ideas that I had were, on the second floor, build a community college. If we had a community college on the second floor and the first floor were businesses, where the businesses were compatible to what was being taught on the second floor with the community colleges, giving work opportunities to student, co-op education. Your student, your son or your daughter wouldn't be racking up $160,000 in basically a student loan mortgage. It's something to consider, folks. Today, everybody wants a new school. I'd like a new school. I'd like a new car. But there are times when you just have to say, hey, are we making the wise decision? Are we doing something that's gonna...
Mr. McDonald, we've already made that decision. We're on the preservation of this building. That's the third time. Next time, you're out of order.
Thank you. Is Mr. Tracy here today? Our principal.
What's your question, Mr. McDonald?
I would like to ask him how many classrooms are in Wilmington High School and how many classrooms are going to be in the new school.
We're not talking about the new school, Mr. McDonald.
Okay, how many classrooms are in this school?
Mr. Tracy, is Mr. Tracy here? No, Mrs. Benton? Any idea how many classrooms?
Our principal is not here?
What's that, Mrs. Benton?
Oh, amazing.
Any idea how many classrooms? 56. 56, thank you. Further discussion, Mr. McDonald. You've got 1 minute.
Yes, how many students per classroom, Mrs. Benton? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Could you get the microphone? Thank you.
Mr. McDonald.
The overall student class size at the high school, based on the combination of all the classes and all the staff, is 14.6 students.
14.6 students per classroom. See, when I went to school here, it was like 28 and 30 students per classroom, and now we're being told that this school is too small for us.
You have
14 kids, that's
We have 10 seconds,
that's too
Mr.
many
McDonald.
kids in a classroom. Those
Thank you,
poor
Mr.
little...
McDonald. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Okay. Sure.
2015 Apache Way. Can I move this question forward to vote?
No, I have not heard debate on both sides of the article. I only see a couple of people standing up right now, so we may be able to get through this quicker than actually taking that vote, if that's okay with you.
I just want to make one comment.
Then you can make a comment, certainly.
I heard people talking about, the economy, and you're right, we're all in the same boat. But, this offer, whatever money we get from the state, there's no, when it comes back, you don't know. We need to vote this today, and, I might be out of work in 6 months. You can't foresee that. The oil, if it's there or if it's not there, you can't foresee certain things. We need to move ahead with this.
Thank you, sir. Let me try to be clear to all the speakers. We're voting on whether we should preserve this building. That's it. We've already voted on constructing a new high school. So if we could limit discussion to that, Mr. Bolero.
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. Could you tell us if the town considered the threat of a 70,000-gallon oil spill and/or flooding in the basement of the new structure when it rejected saving this building and renovating this building, and what were the results?
Mr. Cairo? Mr. Cairo.
Yeah, the simple answer is yes. And if you want, Mr. Moderator, if the people want, we could ask the architect to address. Well, the simple answer was yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Shukas, then Mrs. West. Mrs.
Yes,
Shukas.
Joanne Shukas. The water from the Swain School is absorbed into the ground long before it ever gets to the high school. And the oil is so far below ground, it does not affect the present building. Now, we need a town hall, and we need public service to all be in a central place. I can't think of a better place than this building to house all the offices that we need in a central location, because you're going to have lots of parking, and there's no reason to demolish a building that we can use, because that town hall that we have is a big joke. So let's put it someplace central and in a large building. What is it going to cost us? Well, we're already going to put $80-odd million into a high school, so go the road, renovate this building, and keep it.
Mrs. West.
Karen West, 2 Birchwood Road. I have a couple of questions. If we keep the new building or don't keep the new building, is the oil going to be taken away or not taken away? Is that going to make a difference?
Mr. Kyra.
The oil that is remaining, and it's not 70,000 gallons, back in 1986, and I know you didn't want to get into this, but back in 1986 or 84, there was an oil spill that was remediated, and what was left that wasn't taken up has been determined to be 14 feet and further below ground level. We are under an AUL through the DEP, and we are in compliance with everything. In fact, what you're now going to see is if there was a problem, the location of the oil spill was underneath this building. This building is going to go. So if there ever was an issue, and we have done all the testing required to determine that there isn't, but if there ever was an issue, now you could address it so that students are not in a building where there was an oil spill emanating from underneath. We've done all the borings, all the testing. We have addressed this matter to the satisfaction of those people who are supposed to be looking at this from a professional point of view, and there is no issue. I cannot be more clear. I'm the last person that's going to build a building so that my grandchildren can have a problem. That's not going to happen.
Is the switch on?
Yeah. I just turned it off and on. The other question, thank you very much for answering that. The other question is that if we take down the old building, this building, or leave it up, is it going to impact the new building in either way? How would it impact it?
Mr. Kyra.
If we left this building up, then we couldn't build the new school that has been approved and the plans, the design development approved by the MSBA. So if this article passes, then we are in what I would say a royal conundrum. Because in order for us to build the project that you just approved, this building will need to be removed and demolished.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Marchese.
I make a motion to move the question.
There's a motion on the floor. I will allow it. Is there a second? Okay, motion's made and seconded. You're voting to end debate and give the maker of the motion up to 10 minutes to discuss the article. Okay, we ready for the vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
Hold on one second, ladies and gentlemen. I want to check with the auditorium. Hold on. Is there a question? Mr. Foskett? Okay. If there is confusion, I'm going to allow a re-vote on this. Okay. I hear enough confusion. Let me explain this again. So we're currently debating Article 6. Mr. Marchese moved the question, which is to end debate, and within the moving of the previous question, our bylaws give the maker of the motion up to 10 minutes to address the body if you vote in favor of ending debate. So if you want that to happen, you should vote yes. If you don't want that to happen, you should vote no, and we would continue debate. Okay? Are we clear? Anybody that's not clear? Say it again. So if you want to end debate and give the maker of the motion, which in this case is Mr. McDonald, up to 10 minutes to address the body, you vote yes. And then nobody else can speak but the petitioner, okay? If you want to continue debate, you should vote no. Mr. Newhouse.
Mr. Moderator, if the body votes no, what happens if nobody else has anything to say?
We would take the vote, but I caution you, there were people at microphones. So just to be fair here, okay? Is this assembly clear on what we're voting? Anybody that's not clear? Okay. So we're ready for the vote. We're voting to end debate. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Mr. McDonald. Hold on 1 second. Same vote in the auditorium. I should have checked before. I'm sorry. But Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Are any representatives from the owner's project manager here, Jocelyn Lesser?
From what? I'm not sure what the question is, Mr. McDonald.
I would like to know if the principals from Jocelyn Lesser, who are the owner's project managers, are they here today?
Yes.
My question is this. 2 years ago at town meeting, we were promised a fair and honest feasibility study. And we were told that we were going to have an evaluation, a complete evaluation. What does this building need to have addressed, and how much will it cost? I am looking at your contract, and I'm seeing that you are paid each $225 an hour.
Mr. McDonald, this is about the preservation of this building, not about people's pay, not about
Correct.
anything other than the preservation of the building. Period. I've given you all the leeway I can.
I am fully aware of that. I happen to be of the opinion that when a building is being looked at to be preserved, and we were told that we were going to have a feasibility study for this building that was going to be voted on to be preserved or knocked down, it was going to be a fair and honest evaluation. I have not seen, and when I requested, I have not received a detailed list of items that this building needs to be addressed to meet our needs and the cost to address those needs. And I brought up the salary because when you pay somebody $225 an hour,
1,426 people just voted to construct a new Wilmington High School. That's the feasibility study. We're talking about preservation of this building, and you're now out of order. Thank you. We're ready for the vote. No, you cannot. Sit down. Sit down, Mr. We're now on Article number 6 is presented, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want, we're on the main motion now, the actual article. So if you're in favor of Article 6, in preserving and preventing the demolition of Wilmington High School, you should vote yes. And if you are opposed to that, you should vote no. Everybody clear on what we're voting on? Anybody not clear? If you were on Article number 6, which is to preserve the building that you're sitting in, the existing Wilmington High School, if you are in favor of preserving this building, you should vote yes. If you are in favor of not preserving it and building the new high school, in effect, that you just voted on, you should vote no. Clear? Another question. Yes, ma'am. Every article is subject to one reconsideration, so the answer to that would be yes. It could. I am suggesting you not leave until we adjourn the meeting, ma'am. Okay, everybody clear on what we're voting on? Okay, I just want to check with my partner down the other row. Okay, we're ready for the vote. All those in favor, we'll try a voice vote. All those in favor of Article 6 as presented signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. Motion is defeated. Mr. Foskett, could I see you, please? We're on Article number 3 and 4. Mr. McDonald,
Question up for reconsideration.
how did you vote?
I voted to not preserve it.
So you presented the article in favor and voted against it.
Correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what I conferred with counsel on, and unfortunately, there is nothing I can do to prevent that. He voted against his own article. That is correct. Is there a second to reconsider? Motion's made and seconded. Discussion, Mr. McDonald. It's going to be a very tight rein.
Mr. Stewart, question. When somebody wants to preserve a school and we are asked to do a feasibility study, is that relative to preserving a school?
Going into the discussion on people's salaries and on a feasibility study that was applicable to a vote we took on a previous article that was already voted, that I told you we could not go into at the beginning of the article, is not allowable. That's correct.
But what I'm asking you is, 2 years ago at town meeting, there was going to be a feasibility study on keeping this too. It was part of it. I actually have the article here. And in addition to that...
Your article, Mr. McDonald, doesn't talk about a feasibility study. It talks about the preservation of Wilmington High School.
Correct.
This body just voted on that feasibility study in a new high school. So I limited your discussion to preserving the high school. I've said it 6 or 7 times, Mr. McDonald.
Okay, that's fine. We're going to have to agree to disagree, Mr. Stewart.
We certainly will.
Okay. But let me let everybody know, okay, getting back to the fact that our country is a republic, the Attorney General will be looking at this, folks. All right? So be prepared for that, okay? In addition to that, I would just like to say that we've had some great teachers at Wilmington High School here, and we've graduated some very, very successful people here, okay? This building here has educated many great people.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to think I'm doing an okay job on my own. Thank you.
Is our town assessor here today?
For what purpose, Mr. McDonald?
I'd like to discuss the assessment on the building. The value.
Mr. Moynihan. The question is, Mr. Moynihan, what's the assessment on the current Wilmington High School?
Approximately $23 million.
Thank you.
Moynihan. Mr. Moynihan.
Mr. Moynihan, if you could, I believe there's another question.
Skippy.
Excuse me, Mr. McDonald?
I just wanted to ask him another question. Did the Board of Assessors vote to demolish a building worth that much?
No.
No? Is there a reason why you didn't take a vote? I mean, that's a lot of money.
Mr. McDonald, the Board of Assessors doesn't take those votes. If you have something pertinent to your article, please address it. Otherwise, you're out of order.
Okay,
Thank you.
I have some...
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, sir.
Hi, Josh Rominsky. I live at 7 Faneuil Drive. I'd just like to make the observation that Mr. McDonald, who addressed, I believe, the entire audience here today as the mob, and said that democracy has failed, has now been butchering the same democratic process by voting against his own motion so he can hear himself speak. Given that, I'd like to move to vote and end this debate.
I think we may be able to accomplish that with Mr. Marchese's backing away from the microphone, I think. Yes, he is. Yes, thank you. We're ready for the vote? So we're voting on reconsidering Article number 6. If you want to reconsider Article 6 and bring it back up for a whole nother vote again, you should vote yes. If you don't want to reconsider Article 6 and Article 6 will be done for the day, you should vote no. Everybody clear on what we're voting on? Anybody not clear? Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of reconsidering Article 6 signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. The motion fails. No offense to the folks in the auditorium, but all the votes there could not have overcome that vote from this room. So we're on Article number 3 and 4, and once again, ladies and gentlemen, I do encourage you, we've only got a few more articles left, so if you could hang in there through the whole agenda, that would be great. And just to comment on a previous speaker's motion, democracy is succeeding today thanks to you. Let's continue with the process. We're on Article number 3. To see if the town will vote pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 58 of the Massachusetts General Laws to authorize the town of Wilmington, through its town manager and town council, A, to impose and record a lien against private real property for municipal charges that arise or have arisen from the trimming, cutting, and or removal of trees or bushes at such property by the town's tree warden and his or her deputies, where one, such action is deemed necessary because the affected trees or bushes have been found to obstruct, endanger, or hinder pedestrians or others traveling on public ways, or two, such personnel have been duly authorized to take such action by recorded vote of the Wilmington Board of Selectmen pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 87, Section 5, and 3. The owner of such property has failed or refused to perform such trimming, cutting, or removal following notice given to him or her by the town of Wilmington, and 4, the property owner has failed or refused to pay the amount of such charges when an invoice presented to him or her becomes due. Such municipal charges to include the cost of performing the work by or for the town of Wilmington and any safety and or security measures related to the performances of such work, and B, to add the remaining unpaid amount of such municipal charges to the property owner's next tax bill or take any other action related thereto. Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First, let me say you've done an outstanding job moderating this meeting, fair and objective. How about a round of applause?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town of Wilmington, through its town manager and town council, may impose and record a lien against private real property for the municipal charges that arise or have arisen from the trimming, cutting, and or removal of trees or bushes at such property by the town's tree warden and his or her deputies, where such action
Mr. McCoy, does your motion read as is in the booklet?
Absolutely.
Great. I'll accept that as the main motion. Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. Finance Committee recommendation is approval. Discussion. Mr. Kyra.
Mr. Moderator, briefly, the purpose of the article is to allow the town to have a means to collect expenses that it incurs or has incurred to remove or otherwise deal with dangerous trees. Now, this would only apply when the owner of the property in question fails to address the problem and then fails to reimburse the town for addressing it. Passing the article will place the financial burden on the non-cooperating property owner instead of the town's taxpayers. We do this under a Massachusetts statute right now, General Law 87, Section 5, which authorizes the selectmen to order the removal of a dangerous tree. Now, we're not talking about a tree that you might be in dispute with your neighbor if you think their tree should come down. We're talking about a tree that would endanger the public. We had examples of this where a tree could endanger the public on main roadways, and in the past we've had to go in and ask the property owner to address the problem. When they didn't, after several attempts to do so under the statute, we have had to go in and do it and have no way of recovering the cost if they don't pay their share. So that particular statute that I just referred to doesn't specifically allow the town to recover cost for the tree removal. However, if you pass this particular article, you would be adopting a different general law, Chapter 40, Section 58, which would permit the town to impose and record a lien on private real estate in the case of local charges or fees that the owner of that particular property has failed to pay when those dollar amounts are due.
Further discussion? Mr. McDonald.
Yes. I'm actually very familiar with this tree that Mr. Kara is talking about. I'm offended because I actually took the time to go talk to this guy. He actually is a very nice guy. He has 4 little girls. He's a family man, providing for his family. And to have Mr. Kara call him out and try to embarrass
Mr. McDonald, this isn't addressing any individual. It's a bylaw. It's accepting a state statute.
Well,
It has nothing to do with an individual or anyone else.
What I'm trying to tell you is we all pay taxes, okay, to fund a tree department, okay? And I expect when somebody like this guy has a tree that's dangerous right on the edge of the property.
Mr. McDonald, once again, there is no discussion of an individual case. We're adopting a special statute, Chapter 40, Section 58.
I'm trying to explain something. I believe that tree started growing on the town property and then grew up onto his property, okay? And if you guys pay for a tree department, okay, and you happen to have a tree right on the property line, okay, what you're going to get now is you're going to get a bill. You're going to get taxed just like we are on other things. You're going to get a tax bill that pays for the tree department, and then you're going to get another bill. It's called double dipping, like we have in a lot of departments in our town. And Mr. Kara, I personally think you should be ashamed of yourself.
Mr. McDonald, further discussion? Sorry, I think that's, yes, Mr. Bodnar.
McDonald. I guess I'm with you now. Basically, Mr. McDonald more or less said what I said. We do have a tree department, and they do get paid whether they take a tree down or don't take a tree down. There is always work for them in town. And again, I have no idea who this person is or the location where this particular tree and the lien process. I personally don't feel that we should be putting liens on people's property with a tree that is questionable. Public safety, yes, take care of it. I'm all for that. But we do have a tree department, and lordy, allow them to use the equipment and do something for the residents of the town rather than dunning them for an exorbitant fee, and then when they can't pay it, I mean, all of us are in dire straits today. When they can't pay it, they put a lien on them. Basically, I'm saying we've passed a couple of articles today. Let's not pass this one. Let's give the taxpayer a break.
Ma'am? There should be a switch probably on the bottom. Up on the microphone.
It's on? Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Deborah Russo. I live at 902 Lord's Court. I just have a question. I'm not really understanding when you say private property, how far in? Are we talking about a tree that maybe was affected by ice that overhangs high tension wires or telephone wires that have typically been removed by the town, or where?
Mr. Kyra?
What we are talking about, in fact, what we're talking about is protecting the taxpayer who shouldn't have to pay for the negligence of a private property owner. And that's what we're talking about. And we're talking about a tree or a limb that we have deemed through the tree warden, the Department of Public Works, and their tree department, who go through a process, a public process with the Board of Selectmen. In each case, in any case, it would have to be voted by the Board of Selectmen to take down a dangerous tree, or limb, one that is determined to be of danger to the public. The town is not authorized to go on to private property and take down a tree. That's legally, we cannot go on your property to take down a tree. However, if it's deemed that a particular tree or a limb from a tree is going to present a danger, then we have to protect the public. That's what we're sworn to do. Now, I can only think of 2 or 3 times in my 20-odd years here that we've had to take that action, but it then costs the taxpayer the money for having taken that action. So that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to be able to come up with a system to recover the cost. That's why the statute is there. That's why most communities have this statute, to protect the taxpayers. And more importantly, I want to make sure that that limb or that tree is not going to come down on a child or on a motorist or on a pedestrian, and that's when we take that action. That's all it is, and it's something that is done in most communities.
So the limbs that were taken down during the ice storms or winter routinely along the road, that along the sidewalks and stuff, or that might be overhanging as part of that property.
If it's determined that a limb, for example, is over a wire, then we address that along with Reading Municipal Light Department. There's no charge for that at all.
Okay.
We're talking about something totally different from that. Our tree department continues to address that, as does Reading Light.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Should be on. Okay, thank you. They're shutting them off at the back. I just want to confirm then, Mr. Kyra, that if there is a tree in the right-of-way that is in front of your property, that tree would be taken care of by the town because it is in the right-of-way and not on the private owner's property. Is that correct?
Mr. Kyra?
Thank you.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
If the tree warden determines or feels that something is a risk and the homeowner disagrees with it and therefore says, I'm not going to do anything, what type of recourse will a homeowner have, and what type of process will have to happen in order to determine whether or not there is indeed a problem?
Mr. Kyra?
In each case, there has to be a hearing, and it has to be voted on by the Board of Selectmen. They would have to direct it, so the homeowner would have the recourse of the Board of Selectmen. It's just not simply a decision made by the Department of Public Works.
Okay, thank you.
Sir?
15 Apple Tree Lane. Make a motion, move the question.
Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. We're moving to, the motion is to end debate and give the maker of the motion up to 10 minutes. I think you're familiar with this motion already today. Any question on what we're voting on? It's going to end debate, give the maker of the motion, which was Mr. McCoy, if he should so choose, up to 10 minutes. All those in favor, hold on. All those in favor of ending debate on Article 3 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Mr. McCoy? He's good. We're ready for the vote. We're on Article number 3. We'll try a voice vote. All those, everybody clear on what we're voting on? We're on Article number 3. No, we're going to take 2 separate votes. It'll be 3, and then we'll take up 4 immediately following, okay? All those in favor of Article number 3 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Voted. Thank you. We're on Article number 4. To see if the town will vote to amend the bylaws of the inhabitants of the town of Wilmington revised to insert as Section 35 of Chapter 5 a new provision as follows. That provision, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly as it is in Article 3 that you just voted on. The difference is that Article 3 gave the selectmen the authority pursuant to Chapter 40 to post liens. Article 4 actually is inserting that language in the bylaw. Okay, so that's all we're doing. It's exactly the same language, same thing. It's just going in the bylaw as opposed to giving the selectmen the authority. Okay? Is there a motion? Mr. Shampoo.
Yes. Congratulations. I move to amend the bylaws of the inhabitants of the town of Wilmington revised to insert as Section 35 of Chapter 5 a new provision as follows.
And Mr. Shampoo, does it continue as is in the booklet?
It does.
It does. I'll accept that as the main motion. Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. Finance Committee recommendation. Approval, discussion. Mr. Kyra.
Briefly, the purpose of this article is to include in the town's bylaws a provision that reflects the vote that you just took on the preceding article. The new provision will notify the public now of our authority to impose and record a lien, and it will essentially codify what you just did. So now there is a public notification process via a town bylaw.
So we're ready for the vote. We're on Article number 4. All those in favor of Article 4 as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. We're on Article number 2. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain the parcel of land located off Church Street in Wilmington containing approximately 10,299 square feet and shown as Parcel X on a plan entitled Plan of Land, First Baptist Church, 173 Church Street, Wilmington, Mass., map 63, lot 9, September 9th, 2011, on file with the town clerk's office for school purposes and other general municipal purposes, and further to see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow pursuant to any applicable statute or transfer from available funds a sum of money for such purposes or take any other action related thereto. So motion, Mr. Samaglia.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the Board of Selectmen be authorized to acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain the parcel of land located off Church Street in Wilmington containing approximately 10,299 square feet and shown as Parcel X on a plan entitled Plan of Land, First Baptist Church, 173 Church Street, Wilmington, Mass. Map 63, Lot 9, September 9th, 2011, for school purposes and other general municipal purposes, and further appropriate from the general fund the amount of $15,000 to acquire said property.
Great, I'll accept that as the main motion. The inclusion of $15,000, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference between Mr. Samaglia's motion and what you have in your booklet. Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. Finance Committee recommendation is approval. Discussion, Mr. Kyra.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually a component of the new high school project. There is a quarter-acre of land that the town for many, many years has had an informal agreement with the Baptist Church to utilize. If you are familiar with the softball field, it extends from just to the right of the pitcher's mound over to first base. So we have, if you want to come from the tennis courts and draw a line straight back, it goes right through the softball field. That area and then out into the left, where some of it is wetlands, literally belongs or does belong to the Baptist Church. Thanks to the good relationship that the town has with Reverend Grimley, who I see is here, and I want to publicly thank him and his parish for their wonderful cooperation in making sure we can have the best possible school possibly. We were able to execute through the Board of Selectmen a contingent purchase and sale agreement for the sum of $15,000. So we're able to buy this quarter of an acre of land for $15,000 and enable us to site the project exactly the way it has been shown. It improves our sight lines, our issues with wetlands, with fields and everything else. It's only a quarter of an acre, but it has a large impact on the school project. I've been asked if we didn't have this, whether or not we wouldn't build a school. No, we'd build a school, but we wouldn't be able to build it quite the way we would like to. So I would urge folks to vote for this article so that we can complete the execution of this purchase and sale.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Further discussion? We're ready for the vote? Okay, we're voting on Article number 2. Scott, you ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of Article 2 as presented by Mr. Samaglia signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Voted. Before I get to the final article here, I just want to take a minute. You can't see him from this room, but my partner today, Mr. Scott Garant, is assisting me as the moderator in the auditorium, and I'd like to thank him for his fine work. And also, we used a little new process checking in by alphabetical order today. I thought it worked much better than everybody having to know your precinct. That was her idea, and she did a great job. Town Clerk Sharon George. We're on Article number 5. And I have, do we have a motion for this, Rod? Or no, just not surplus. Okay. To see whether the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to enter into an agreement, the terms of which shall be determined by the selectmen to sell, convey, or otherwise dispose of all or part of the following described parcel, following a determination made by the town manager that the land is not needed for any municipal purpose, and in accordance with Chapter 3, Section 16 of the bylaws of the inhabitants of the town of Wilmington revised, and any other applicable law. The parcel is located on Boutwell Street, described in the assessor's records as map 19. Parcel 52 would take any other action related thereto. Mr. Town Manager, is there a declaration of surplus?
Yeah, we declared it not surplus to the needs of
So
town.
by our bylaws, we're not able to proceed with the article, so I'll entertain a motion to pass over.
I move to pass over this article and take no action.
Very good. Thank you. Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Voted. Ladies and gentlemen, all that we have between us and the rest of our day is a motion to adjourn. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Congratulations, Wilmington.